I told myself a while ago that I wasn't going to put as much pressure on myself with this as I did last year. I lied. I am here with my Wall of Resistance, my Water is Life t-shirt, and my IndigAthon TBR. Hello BookTube, it's Andrea, and we're gonna get sappy for a second. So before we do that, I'm gonna explain what IndigAthon is. It is a readathon hosted throughout the entire month of November, which is Native American Heritage Month. The hosts are Michelle from Throw Once Another Letter and Brody from A2 Brody. They are both amazing booktubers and human beings, and I will link their info as well as the IndigAthon social media below. If you're not subscribed to them already, absolutely go do that. They both make wonderful content. So yeah, that's what this video is a TBR for that readathon. And so the little story that I was going to tell before I dive into this absurdly ambitious collection of books here. My first BookTube video was last year's IndigAthon TBR, and I had never spoken to anyone on BookTube before. I was in a very lurker kind of position of witnessing the community from a distance and just kind of being like, well, all these famous booktubers talk about all these friends that they have in the community, and I'm like, I don't know what that is. I don't think I can ever experience that. Yeah, so when I made that video, I did not expect anyone to watch it, really. I was just kind of like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I also really didn't know a ton about Indigenous literature, and I just was threw everything I had into this. I just have so many good memories of doing this, even though I wasn't super involved in the community at the time. It was a time of really honing my literary tastes, I think, and just discovering that I want to throw my all behind reading and supporting Indigenous literature and authors and content creators. Right after that was when I started meeting people, and now I've have a handful of really amazing booktube friends, and I know what all of those people were saying in the videos that I used to watch when I was kind of in my lurking phase. So I guess all of that's just to say that I'm really grateful that this readathon exists, that it's growing, that so many people are getting more involved in it now, and I hope it will go on forever. And I'm just so excited to participate in it this year with more events going on and with really knowing all these people. So like I said, I told myself that I would be less intense about my TBR than I was last year. But as you can tell, that's not what ended up happening. But this is still not a super concrete TBR. There's definitely a couple of things that I'm prioritizing and that I will definitely be reading, but a lot of other titles are ones that I might just dip my toes into a little bit, or kind of listen to as well as read along with. So I'm gonna go through the bingo board that Michelle and Brody have created and talk about what goes with those, and then mention the other ones. So the first prompt is intersectionality. For that, I think I'm going to count Johnny Appleseed, which is the first audiobook that I'm going to dive into. That's one of my top priorities because it is one of Brody's favorites, and they mentioned feeling very seen by it, and I really want to get around to that one because it's one of the ones that I've been eager to read ever since I learned about it last year. The next one is New to You. There are quite a few authors that I've not read before, so many of these could count. I think the first hard copy that I'm going to read is Empire of Wild by Sherry Dimeline. I was extremely shocked to find this at my local libraries. They have this area under their big staircase where they have used books that are old library books that were weeded out, and this was in there. I do not understand. It's so new, and they still have copies for checkout, so it's a mystery, but I was really excited. Sherry Dimeline is the author of The Marrow Thieves, which is a sort of YA sci-fi, and I think I'm going to try to get to that one on audio as well. I believe it's on my Libby. The next prompt is Other Than 5 Civilized Tribes, which are Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, and Seminole. And I believe that also most of these will count for that. I think what I might say for that is This Accident of Being Lost by Leanne Batassim Simpson, which I am about halfway through and have been taking very slowly and savoring, because this collection of stories and poems / songs is just the most gorgeously written thing ever, and I really want to savor it. But I'm going to finish that and then potentially reread Islands of Decolonial Love by the same author, because I listened to this in the summer and I don't think I was fully able to absorb all of its amazingness, so I want to reread it on paper. But we'll see how that goes. Leanne is a Anishinaabe author from so-called Canada. The next prompt is middle grade. There are several that I have on the docket for this. I have interlibrary loaned a copy of Apple in the Middle by Dawn E. Quigley, because Michelle has talked so much about how much this book has meant to her, and it sounds like such an incredibly sweet story. So that's one of the middle grades. And then I also would like to try to listen to Race to the Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. I apparently cannot exist without constantly listening to an audiobook, so that's a thing right now, and it's also primarily the way that my attention span has been able to read this fall. So if anything on this TBR gets completed, it will be the audiobooks, and Race to the Sun is super short, so it sounds like it's going to be a really fun time. There is a Free Space classic bingo board. The next one is buddy read. So Sarah from Stringbean Books and I are going to be buddy reading Love After the End, which is a collection of Two-Spirit and Indigiqueer speculative fiction short stories edited by Joshua Whitehead, with stories from many different authors, including Darcy Littlebadger, the author of Ilatswe. I am so excited for this. My copy has not come yet, so I can't show it off. It seems like absolutely incredible, and my favorite book that I read last year for IndigAThon was a sort of similar thing that I guess it's kind of like the first book in a like series of these things, but like the editors are different, so I don't quite get what's up with that. But it was called Love Beyond Body, Space, and Time, which was also a collection of queer, indigenous, sci-fi, speculative fiction type stories. All of those things combined into one is like everything I would ever want in a story, so I'm really looking forward to that. I am also going to be buddy reading Mapping the Interior by Stephen Graham Jones with Sage from Sage Reads. Hopefully my interlibrary loan comes through in time, but I believe the ebook is quite inexpensive, so I can also get that if necessary. It's a sort of like horror story, very short. Next we have Other Than the United States. Already there's been some Canadian authors in here, so that counts, but I also wanted to talk about Whale Rider by Witi Ihimera. Is this similar positioning? My battery died, so I had to put in another one. What was I talking about? Whale Rider. So I heard about this book from Kim from Native Lady Book Warrior, and she recommended the movie as well, which my parents and I watched a couple weeks ago, and my dad was quite touched by it. So I went to Better World Books and got him a copy. That brings me to the fact that I'm going to make my parents participate in this. So my dad will read this, might also get him a copy of Race to the Sun from the library, and then I ordered Native by Caitlin Curtis for my mom. I'm also going to be trying to read this with my dad as, I guess, my third buddy read, and it was very sweet. My mom saw this the other day and was like, I want to read it too. So family buddy read, I guess. It is a Maori story, so that is definitely not in the US. So the last two things on the bingo board are the group book, which is Heartbeat Braves by Pamela Sanderson, I think. I think the only way that I can get a copy of this is an ebook. It's a romance. I'm not sure if I'm going to read this or not. I'm definitely a lot more interested in most of the other books that I have just talked about, but if I have time or am in the mood for it, I will definitely be getting the ebook of that. And the last thing is non-bookish media. So for that, I'm gonna try to watch as many movies / documentaries, shows, screen things as I can get in / have access to. Indian Horse is on Netflix, so I believe that I will orchestrate a viewing of that with my family. Also maybe try to watch some documentaries with them. There is a movie that I discovered last year called The Body Remembers When the World Broke Open that's on Netflix that I was too depressed to watch last year, and then forgot about / didn't have Netflix for a while. I don't know. Excuses are not fair, but it is what it is, and I'm really looking forward to watching it now. It seems like a really wonderful story. And then as far as podcasts, there are a handful that I have been listening to throughout the fall that I will keep listening to. All My Relations, Red Nation, where did it go? There's one called Unreserved that I haven't listened to yet that I want to check out, but there's another one. Not Invisible, Native Women on the Front Lines. And The Secret Life of Canada is one that I became obsessed with over the summer on Sarah's recommendation. And one of the hosts is, I believe, Mohawk, but they talk a lot about Indigenous history in so-called Canada, so we'll also probably get to a couple of those new episodes as they come out, as well as maybe some backlog ones that I haven't gotten to yet. Last thing, I found this list of Indigenous metal bands, and I listened to one of the albums from Nechachwen, who are from so-called West Virginia, I believe. A friend of mine who grew up in that area sent it to me, and I was like, this is such a good album. And then I was looking up the band and found this list, so I definitely going to be checking out more of that. I will link the article down below. All of that being said, there are also a handful of other books that I may try to get to that don't fit on the bingo board. My god, look at me being even more intense than last year. I just don't know how to be chill. There are just so many good options for Indigenous literature that exist in the world and that are sitting unread on my shelves, and I just would like to not have to do school or work or anything, so I can just do this all month. But that is unfortunately wishful thinking. I also found Under the Stairs at my library, They're There by Tommy Orange. I believe what I will do is listen to the audiobook and read along with it, because I had been planning on listening already before I found this. And like I said, attention span issues, I know that I will definitely read it if I can listen. So last year I had started reading and then finished later on in the year because library due date travel stuff happened. But this collection of short stories by Lois Beardsley, it was like sort of like a memoir / like traditional stories sort of mixed together. But she has a poetry collection that was recently published. The story collection I think was like from 2002 or 3. But this poetry collection was published this year. It's called Words Like Thunder, New and Used Anishinaabe Prayers. And I picked this up at my local indie bookstore last week. The first time I'd been in there since January. It was very sweet to go in, and I'm really excited to read this. I'm hoping that I can... Oh, this is cool. There's like a longer story in it too. Hoping that my mom might also pick up this. So yeah, this gorgeous thing. And speaking of poetry, I also have this collection of poems called New Poets of Native Nations. I believe Lois has pieces in here. No, she doesn't. Oh, I think I'm thinking of Margaret Newton, who is also an Anishinaabe poet. Clearly, I will not finish this whole thing, but it's organized by like six-ish poems of each poet in there, so I may read like 1 or 2 sections of poets. I also have All the Real Indians Died Off and 20 Other Myths About Native Americans, which is a history book by Roxanne Dunbar-Oritz and Dina Gila Whitaker. I was thinking that I could try to read like one little section at a time and potentially like read it aloud with my family, or like kind of try to initiate a family buddy read. I don't know, but I think that I can definitely make it through this. It seems like it's written in a really digestible way. The last 3 are also things that I may have to listen to while I read. Danny and Aaron from Thunderbird Woman Reads and Aaron's Library have a sort of Louise Erdrich read along throughout the year. I had bought the books for this fall from Louise Erdrich's bookstore, Birch Bark Books. They were signed, and I just couldn't manage to get to the September book. I was suddenly back in college after a summer of absolutely nothing, and my brain just wanted to explode. So I'm hoping that I may get through Plague of Doves to catch up to The Roundhouse, which is the November book. These are like connected, I think, which is why I can't like skip this one as far as I know. Who knows? who knows? I will try to be vlogging as much as I can for like different video challenges. So you'll see what happens. The final thing is Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. This is another one that I'm gonna try to leave around the house to nudge my mom to pick up, because she was super intrigued by this when my Birch Bark Books order came in with it. It feels like watercolor paper. It's so nice to hold it. This is one that I think will be a very slow read, little bits here and there, potentially listening. My cousin mentioned that the author does narrate the audiobook, so maybe I can find that on Libby. So to wrap up, participate in IndigAthon. Check out the links I have below for ways to be in solidarity with Indigenous peoples around Turtle Island right now. There are especially some time-sensitive things with comment periods for the Standing Rock pipeline and the Mountain Access, I believe it's called. So deadlines, I believe, are November 9th and November 26th. You can send as many letters as you want, I think. Also, as far as participating in the readathon, please don't forget to mention both creators. Yeah, this is super long, so thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more IndigAthon content throughout the rest of November. I'm so excited. Thank you so much to Michelle and Brody for putting this together and for pulling the community together through this. I really cannot wait for all of the things that will be happening throughout the month. So yeah, bye.